We have started discussion of JDBC statements in the previous sessions. We have started discussion of statement objects. So once database is established, the connection, you need to create the statement objects. These statements object is in the form of query statements. That query which will be understandable by the specific database. Depend on the selection of your database, either Oracle or MySQL, which type of the database you selecting to interact with them. Similarly, you need to write the SQL queries for that. The SQL queries which you are going to write is in the form of string in the Java. Those querying string you need to pass on to one of the following statement objects depending on how you want to build your application. So the three different statements objects, one is the statement object, another one is prepared statement, and the third one is callable statement. When statement object is defined, which executes a query immediately, means it is faster execution. Whenever you are sending a query to the Java servlet, automatically it directly translate that string equivalent to the query, which will be understood by the database directly. So whereas in the prepared statement, which is used to execute a compiled query, it means that usually the statement object is used to fetch the records quickly. Whereas the prepared statement, if you submit the form, user form data, to insert the value from real-time forms to the database, you need to have a compiled query. A compiled query is nothing but it will checks the syntax which will be suitable by the database. Means if you, for example, if you are inserting a student record which will consist of 4 fields: name, USN, contact number, and email ID. To insert those information onto the database, you need to prepare the statement, which is pre-compiled statement, which externally we are passing the parameter value onto the query instantly. Means when the application is up and running, during real time you are passing a value. So to accept those query, it shoots to the database, you need to write the prepared statement objects. And the third kind, the callable statement, which is used to execute stored procedures. So especially whenever you are working with transactions, batch updates, means batch jobs. So 100 jobs at a time, 100 transactions at a time. So you are going to use this callable statement. So stored procedure, for example, calculation of employee salary every month. So it is difficult if you go with manually. For enterprise applications, that enterprise needs more than 10,000 of employees is present. To calculate individual salary from manual, it is little difficult. So rather than that, if you are predefining the query and stored in a callable statement, so whenever the time comes, it triggers that procedure and it calculates the employee salary automatically. Right, those kind of stored is a one example of callable statement. So look into the statement object, which are the methods and the interface this statement object supports. So this statement object used whenever a J2EE component needs to immediately execute a query without first having the query compiled. So there is a chances of error introduction during the runtime because that query is not going to compile in this case. If syntax is right, it will directly interact with database. If syntax is wrong, it will throw the exception, class not found exception, SQL exception. There is a possible exception, it will be throwing. So in this case, this statement object makes the database interaction fast, but no reliable. No reliable. There is no guarantee that query is going to be executed. Okay, so that is non-compiled query, it is going to be executed from the statement object. So it contains several execute methods. One of the execute method is execute query. So what is the execute query method? It is passed the query as an argument to this execute query. The query then transmitted to the DBMS for processing. So this method returns one result set object that contains rows, columns and meta information, metadata that represent data requested by query. The result set object contains methods that are used to manipulate that data. The another second method it uses SQL object, statement object uses is execute method. So what is the result it will return? It will, there may be a multiple results returned from by executing this method. So multiple result return means usually it might be the result set or it may be the number of records present in a table or number of columns or the number of records present in a table. If you want to fetch multiple values from a database table, you can use this execute. And the execute update, the name tells us that update help us to update the existing content of the database table or inserting the new value onto the database table or deleting the records or the content of a table from the table from the database table. So these are insert, delete, update. It changes the state of a database. If any transaction which changes the database state, that can, which uses the execute update. Whereas execute query or execute methods, it won't changes the state of the database because it will fetches the record which is present based on the condition you specified in the where class. Whereas execute update, it changes the value of a particular, for example, contact number. If you today you are upgrading your contact number, obviously that it should reflect onto the database student table. So you are going to update that, means that value is going to change the from, it replaces the old value by new value. So in those cases you are going to use execute update method. So execute update, usually return value of this method is usually integer. Why? Because suppose Surface you are updating the contact number. How many records of Surface is present in the student table, master table? One record with the name Surface, right? That phone number is updated. How many record is going to be affected onto table? One. One is what? It's an integer value. Okay. For example, if look into the example, look into the example I am directly going with the usage of execute query method. Suppose customers is a table. Customer is a table. You are fetching the values from the customer. Select star. Star is nothing but multiple columns and multiple records. Select star from means you are going to fetch all the records from the customer table. So data request, that data request is the connection object. It's a statement object. Statement object equal to connection dot create statement. You are creating the statement on the connection object, which will be assigned as a statement object. So result set equal to statement object dot execute query. You are passing query string, you are passing query string as a parameter to execute query method. The resultant of this is again you are going to get the table which will consist of all the information of the customer. That table is virtually exists. That existing table result will be stored in the result set object. This result set object, by using this result set object, you are going to customize your results using the built-in method supported by the result set object. This is the one sample example for how to make use of execute query method from the statement object. Here you are creating the statement objects. The statement object name you have given data request. Result sets, the name you given results. For the connection you given the DB as the connection object. And this is a JDBC URL, user ID and the password of the MySQL database. It's a one simple example which illustrates the how to create the statement object, how you can write the query using the Java statements, how you are passing that query string as a part of the execute query method, and how you are obtaining the result set of this query, which it is going to be execute on to the customer's database in MySQL. Okay, then come back to the presentation. Then this is about the statement object. So one execute query, execute update. Usually execute update is used for insert, update and delete and DDL statements. What is DDL statement? Data descriptive language statements, right? Then use these execute methods, different versions of execute methods, you need to have the create statement method on the connection object, which is called to return a statement. Just now we have seen the example, data request equal to db.create statement. Here data request is a statement object which you are created, and the DB is the connection object which you define to establish a connection with the database. You are created the data request statement by invoking the connection on the create statement. So the following example illustrates how to use the execute method of the statement. Execute method of the statement. So look into the sample code. Same customer table. So this is the query equivalent, string equivalent query statement. So you are updating the customers table based on the balance which it is exist in the customer table. If there is no balance of the customer, you are going to update the value of the paid column by y. Yes. So this is the query string you have written. How you are using the statement object? Statement object equal to connection object dot create statement. You are in created the statement onto the statement object, and you are assigning that statement object, and you are invoking the execute update method passing as a query. Query you are passing to the execute update method. Based on this query updations, the result it is going to be updated. So how many number of rows is going to be updated, that value how many is going to be stored in the rows updated variable. So here execute update returns what kind of the value type? Integer type, means number of records, how many number of records updated which have the customer balance is 0. Based on that, the value it is going to be updated here. So you need to understand statement object equal to connection dot create statement. You are creating the statement object here. You are created the query equivalent string using Java string construct, and you are passing this query as a part of the execute update method which will invoke on the statement object. The execution of this statement which value which will be stored as a rows updated, how many number of records or rows are updated onto the database. Is it clear? Then come back to the presentation. So second type of the statement object in JDBC is prepared statement object. So as the name itself tells, prepared means already prepared to accept the user input and translated to the equivalent query statements and executing or insert or updating or fetching the content to or from the database. A query must be compiled before the DBMS process the query. Compiling occurs after one of the statement objects execution methods is called. Right? So when execute, update, execute, query, execute, when you call those methods during that time, DBMS is going to be compiled. If it shoots, it will execute. Means usually the prepared statement objects are helpful to build a reliable database applications. And it is compared to statement object statement, it is little slower because there is a compilation phase is involved compared to statement object and prepared statement object, because it is overhead. But in this case only one time compilation happens for each client request which you are going to make. So several times it will execute the same query. Okay, so there is a little overhead of this query. However, the compiling process can become an expensive overhead if the query is executed several times by the same instance of the J2EE component during the same session. So every time when new client request goes, obviously every new client which will have a distinct transaction with the databases, every time that query is going to be compiled means it is a overhead. It is cost is involved in this real-time application. J2EE component might be anything like your HTML, JSP code, servlet code, bean code, applet code, any Java component code which belongs to the J2EE, Java to Enterprise Edition component. So prepared statement is reliable for the application, but it is little expensive. And a query can be pre-compiled and executed by using prepared statement object. However, here in the while writing the prepared statement, we are using the question mark. Question mark acts as a placeholder for a value that is inserted into query after the query is compiled. It means that you don't know while creating the your web application, you don't know which user value is going to be inserted in future. For example, take the Amazon. Is it possible to predict a client today he is going to place the order this item, etc., etc.? Not possible, right? Because they have developed the order application for generic purpose. Any value means any kind of the item, it is all depends on the customer willingness, who he or she can going to purchase from the Amazon, right? So on the fly the customer mindset which item he is going to order, it is unpredictable while developing your applications. If you want to support such kind of unpredictable applications, you need to use the question mark as a placeholder in that query. It is this value that changes each time the query is executed. When you execute the query, for example, if you are inserting a record of the student, insertion which will follows the question mark. If question mark is general customized query, insertion query, insert, for example, insert into table values, insert into student values. Suppose SKT 2323, contact number and email ID. Second time again I need to open the code, again I need to type the values. Rather than that, you are creating a generic query, customized query by placing the question mark rather than actual values. To write such kind of query, those kind of query needs the compilation because there is a possibility of syntax errors. When the application is up and running, you need to that application works fine. Otherwise, there is a possibility of losing the business. Okay. The prepared statement method of the connection object is called to return the prepared statement. Same in the same way, statement object equal to connection dot create statement. In the same way, prepared statement equal to connection dot prepared call prepare statement. Okay, the prepared statement method is passed the query which is then pre-compiled. That pre-compiled query only we need to pass on to the execute methods which you are going to call, either execute, execute update, execute query. So it needs, in addition to statement object, the prepared statement, it uses the setX and getX methods. Here triple X is nothing but a return type of the value which you are going to set onto the prepared statement. Here the set triple X method of the prepared statement object is used to replace the question mark. To replace the question mark, this setX methods are used with the value passed to the setX method. We'll see this discussion with an example, a code example. Then it will be more clear. Here triple X represents what? the data types of the value that is being passed to the set method. For example, the name of a student, it is a string representation. Here string set string. Similarly, age of a person, it is usually integer, set int. Here xxx represents the data types of the value which you are going to pass and set replaced by the question mark. The set x requires two parameter. One is, first parameter is the integer that identifies the position of the question mark placeholder, and the second parameter is the value that replaces the question mark. For example, let us see one example. Then we will be more clear. Okay. Now look into this coding. Observe. Previously, you have used select star from customers. That's it. Over. In while in writing a create statement. Now, based on the customer number which you are passing, here filtering technique is used. Searching technique. Custom based on the customer number you are providing, you are going to fetch that customer present in this customer table. Here, question mark acts as a placeholder. This question mark, to replace this question mark, which is the thing you are going to use? How many question mark present? One question mark. So what is the, this question mark is going to replace by set xx method. So customer number usually is a mixed mode of the characters and the text as well as and the numbers, right? So customer number equal to question mark. This placeholder question mark is going to be replaced by using the set string method. String, why string is used? Because the value which you are passing as a customer number is in the form of string value. One is used. Why? How many question mark is present? One question mark is present. So that customer number, first position 123 is the customer number you are passing. The customer number 123 which matches with, matches, that string matches with the customer number of this customer table, those records going to be fetched. Suppose if you have one more query like paid equal to s, paid equal to s, that paid equal to question mark, paid equal to, if you have one more condition, customer number is 123 and the payment value is yes, then you are going to fetch those records. So in this case, prepared statement pst or ps statement equal to connection dot prepared statement. You are passing this query because when you pass this query here, so remember, recall, create statement, no parameters was passed in create statement. Here you are passing query as a part of this prepared statement. The reason is this query is going to be pre-compiled before executing this query. So pre-compilation happens here. So you are going to replace the question mark by the values set string, which is the which position, this one This is first position and this is second position. So the second position and the value is S. You are replacing on the fly while when up and running, you are replacing the value of the question marks by using setX methods. Set X determines the data value which you are passing as a parameter value to this question mark. Based on that, this query is going to be executed with the help of the prepared statement pre-compiled query. Now, after that, you are calling the execute query method directly. Prepared statement, this prepare statement dot execute query method is going to be invoked. So here results, what is the value it is returning? It is returning the intermediary table value. Yes or no? How many customer based on the customer number? Maybe the same customer may order several, place the several orders. If more than one, it will present in the form of table. If is only one record also, tabular format. So here results is the result set of this resulting query executed by this prepare statement execute query method. Clear? How you can write the prepared statement objects for pre-compiling query and how the question mark placeholder is going to be replaced using setX methods and how that prepared statement is going to execute with the execute query methods is the it's the sample code of illustration of that. Clear? Is it clear? Next. So the advantages of using prepared statement object is the query is pre-compiled once and set X method called as needed to change the specified values of the query without having to recompile the query. Compilation happens once for the same client request. You can pass as you can place a number of orders. You can query several time. Select star from customer where customer number equal to. You can query thousand of time. You pass 1, 2, 3, you pass 3, 4, 5, you pass 100. Any number of times you can fetch the records because it is a pre-compiled query. Only the value it is you are going to pass in the real time. Based on that, the query is going to be executed. The prepared statement object also has an execute and execute update method. Not only the execute query with the method supported by it also supports execute and execute update method. The pre-compiling is performed by DBMS and is referred to as late binding. So it's a late binding. Why? Because when the application is running based on the user request, that query is going to be processed. Means after request comes to the code, that code is going to be pre-compiled before executing the query. So you are binding this data queries during runtime. So that is called as late binding. When the DBMS receives the request, the DBMS attempts to match the query to a previously compiled query. If found, then parameters passed to the query using setX methods are bound and query is executed. So based on the pre-compilation and the value which the value you are passing as a parameter using setX methods. Based on that, that data is going to be bind during that time. So that's why it is called as late binding. If data is not found, then the query is compiled and retrained by the DBMS for later use. Every time the same query, if you are fetching several times, it won't compile several times. It directly fetch. If it is a new value you are passing, every time it compiles and retrained by the DBMS for later use. Okay. So the JDBC driver passes two parameters to the DBMS. One parameter is the query, and the another other is an array of late binding variables. In our code, we have used customer number equal to question mark and paid equal to question mark. So the whole query is passing one time. Second time you are passing two parameters. Which are those parameters? Set string first position value customer number, set string second positional value paid status. Yes, right, you are passing query as a single string. In addition to that, additionally you are passing two values. It might be more than one value. So more than one value you can create an array of values also, right? So both binding and compiling is performed by the DBMS. This late binding is not associated with specific object or code block where the prepared statement is declared. So it is not depending on the prepared statement declaration. It depends on the query and the parameter value which you are passing real time. And the third type of the object is statement object is callable statement. This callable statement is used to call a stored procedure from within a J2EE object. So as I told you, the calculation of employee salary, if it is an enterprise application, let us take the Amazon. It's a worldwide application. Lakh number of employees are working from various departments. They needs to calculate the salaries. They needs to calculate the commissions for the agents, vendors. So huge architecture that it is supporting. So if they do it manually, it is a hectic and time consuming work. So to replace that, we to make it automate that procedures. They are creating the pre-compiled queries and stored as a triggering procedures. Whenever it is required, means depending on the time set by them, it will invoke those kind of the query and calculates the corresponding salaries of different vendors and the salespersons present in with them. Okay, the stored procedure is executed by invoking the name of the stored procedure. So how you are calling the methods? How you are calling the methods? Suppose in function one, you defined return some value. So, so how you calling the function? Function one. In the same way, to call the stored procedure, use the stored procedure name to call them. The callable statement object uses three types of parameters when calling a stored procedure. This is especially in the examination statement object, prepared statement, and callable statement. There is a question difference between these three, and probably there is a question of giving the illustrate example of the callable statement. Right, so this is the one another important question with respect to the JDBC concepts for the examination point of view. The callable statement object uses three types of parameters when calling a stored procedure. So, which are those parameters? In, out, in, out, in, out, in, out. Let us look individually. What is in parameter? It contains any data that needs to be passed to the stored procedure and whose value is assigned using the setX method. For example, take the example of salary calculation itself. So when you are using in method, you need to input the basic salary of an employee. You need to input the value to the stored procedure basic salary of an employee. Why it is needed? Is it not constant? Yes, it is constant in certain conditions. For example, absences without informing. If any absences are present, then their salary may vary. If any, suppose if they are promoted to the higher level, their basic salaries has been changed. So to update the new values, you are going to use the in parameter type. Then second, out parameter contains the value returned by the stored procedure. What is the output of that stored procedure? Gross salary and net salary. So net salary equal to gross salaries minus deductions. So gross salary equal to basic into basic plus basic into DA plus HRA plus CCA, right? So here input parameter is basic salary, output parameter from the stored procedure is the salary calculation, that is net salary. So some application needs in and some application needs out. Some application needs both in and out. Usually, out parameter uses getX method, in parameter uses setX method. You are setting the value basic salary to the input method, getting the value from the stored procedure getX method. So here the out parameter must be registered using the register out parameter method. See, simply you cannot use like getX methods directly to fetch the stored procedure value. There should be some distinct method of fetching, right? That distinct method of fetching is here you need to register the out parameter to the method, register out parameter method. And this out parameter method which uses the getX method to retrieve the value given by the stored procedure. Whereas the third is in-out parameter. It's a single parameter that is used to both pass information to the stored procedure and retrieve information from a stored procedure. So in the case, so sometimes we need only in, sometimes only we need out, sometimes most of the time we needs both in and out. Salary calculation needs both in and out. Okay, so let us see, look into the snippet code, then we are able to understand it very clearly. So look into the snippet code. Observe how you are going to write this query for the stored procedures. So here string is going to be created in Java for the stored procedure. How you are calling the last order number is the stored procedure name. Stored procedure name. How you are calling? You are using call. Call is the keyword here. Call last order number. You are passing this as a parameter. If you are passing this as a parameter means you need to have the prepare call. If it is prepared statement method is used. If it is a stored procedure, that is callable statement, you need to use the prepare call. because question mark is present. Question mark is present means you need to pass this query as a pre-compiled query. So the syntax of creating the query string is flower bracket open, call, last order number is the name of the stored procedure, and the parameter for this stored procedure is question mark. Means based on the order number value which you are passing during runtime, this corresponding method is going to be called. So for that, you need to create a callable statement. C statement equal to connection object dot prepare call. You are passing this query as a part of this prepare call for pre-compilation. Then C statement, that is callable statement dot, as I told you, register out parameter method you need to define, because you need to register the value which it is going to be passed from the stored procedure to the customer who is going to request. Callable statement dot register out parameter, how many, which is a position, first position, types dot varchar, data types dot varchar. It's a syntax of the callable statement. Then you are invoking the execute method on the callable statement. So once if you execute, what is the new value of that callable last order number stored procedure? That is callable statement dot get string method is used. Get string method positional value is first value. The first string value you are going to fetch from the callable statement, that will be assigned as a last order number. Getting? In this way you are going to fetch the stored procedure value. This is the syntax and snippet code of illustration of callable statement. It uses register out parameter method. Then okay, we will discuss this result set in the next class. Otherwise, we will get confusion with the difference between objects and result sets. Okay. Any questions with respect to the topic? Any questions? Sarfarash, I hope you understood. Shashank, Ashwini, any questions? Very important, interesting topic. Yes, let me know. You can put your questions in chat window also. We'll discuss. Instead of wasting time, you can put your questions in chat window. Is it clear? Recall statement object, non-compiled queries, prepared statement, compiled queries, callable statements, stored procedure, pre-compiled queries can be executed. So statement object supports execute query, execute update, and execute method. In the same way, prepared statement needs execute, execute update, execute query, callable, register out parameter, getX and setX methods in prepared statement as well as callable. It can, you can use the execute update and execute query method for the all the three statement objects. To create the statement object, statement object st equal to the connection dot create statement. To create the prepared statement object, PST equal to connection dot prepared statement, passing query as a parameter, and callable statement. Call is used with the stored procedure name and followed by the parameter as a placeholder. Question mark is used. Okay, these are the three important JDBC statements which you are going to interact with the application. Any questions?